The great hall of the Galactic Concord was silent. Thousands of delegates from 47 different species sat in their seats. They watched the empty space where Admiral Zorath Velkin stood. His 4 arms hung at his sides. His silver scales had lost their shine. For the first time in his long military career, he looked afraid. "The unbroken armada is gone," he said. His voice echoed through the massive chamber. 312 warships. 2.4 million soldiers. The finest fleet the Celestial Dominion has ever built. They are all gone. Whispers spread through the assembly like wind through tall grass. The delegates looked at each other with confusion and disbelief. The unbroken armada was legendary. It had conquered 17 star systems. It had never lost a single battle. High Arbiter Thiessen leaned forward in his elevated seat. He was the leader of the Concord, a thin creature with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. A smile played at the corners of his mouth. He had never liked the Dominion or their proud admiral. "Gone?" Thiessen asked. "What do you mean gone, Admiral?" "Ships do not simply disappear." Zorath's claws clicked together nervously. "We sent them to subjugate a primitive world. A small planet called Earth, orbiting a yellow star at the edge of the galaxy. The species there had not even discovered faster than light travel. It should have been simple. A standard conquest. And Thiessen pressed. They arrived. They sent one message confirming their position in orbit. Then nothing. Zorath's voice dropped to a whisper. That was 11 cycles ago. No distress signals. No communication. No debris. We have searched the entire system. There is nothing left. Laughter erupted from somewhere in the assembly. It spread quickly. Soon, half the chamber was laughing openly at the Admiral and his lost fleet. Thiessen raised a hand for silence, but he was smiling too. "Admiral, perhaps your famous armada flew into the star by accident. Perhaps your navigators forgot how to read their instruments. Perhaps your soldiers mutinied and killed each other." More laughter followed. Zorath's scales flushed dark red with shame and anger. "This is not a joke. Something destroyed my fleet. Something on that planet killed 2 million of our warriors without leaving a single piece of evidence. A primitive species?" Thiessen laughed again. "A species still using chemical rockets and nuclear weapons? Admiral, I think the answer is much simpler. Your fleet was not as unbroken as you believed." The Admiral opened his mouth to argue, but a new voice cut through the chamber. It was old and dry, like dead leaves scraping against stone. "He is telling the truth." Everyone turned to look at the speaker. She sat in the shadows at the far end of the hall. Elder Chronicler Myrith was ancient beyond measure. She belonged to the Listening Order, a species of monks who spent their lives collecting transmissions from across the cosmos. Her body was wrapped in dark robes. Her face was hidden behind a silver mask. Only her eyes were visible, glowing faintly yellow in the darkness. The Listening Order has been studying the electromagnetic signals from Earth for 300 years. Myrith continued. "We have heard their radio waves, their television broadcasts, their military communications." Thiessen waved his hand dismissively. "And what have you learned from their primitive entertainment?" Myrith stood slowly. Despite her age, her voice grew stronger. "We have learned that they are not like us. They are not like any species in our records." She walked toward the center of the chamber. Every eye followed her. "They fight constantly," she said. "Not just against other species. They fight against each other. They have been at war with themselves for their entire recorded history. War after war after war, with barely a pause between them. Many young species are violent," Thiessen said. "They grow out of it. No, you do not understand." Myrith reached the center platform and turned to face the assembly. "Their violence is not primitive chaos. It is organized, refined. They have turned killing into a science. They have created weapons that can destroy entire cities in a single flash. They have weapons that can poison the land for generations. They have weapons that can burn the sky itself. The laughter had stopped. The chamber was quiet now. And they use these weapons on each other, Myreth continued. Their deadliest war killed 70 million of their own kind in just 6 years. 70 million. That is more than the Dominion has lost in 12,000 years of galactic conquest. Admiral Zoreth stepped forward. This is what I tried to tell you. These creatures are dangerous. Dangerous? Thiessen shook his head. They have not even left their own planet. How dangerous can they be? They went from wooden boats to nuclear weapons in 150 years, Myreth said. They went from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in 66 years. They adapt faster than any species we have ever seen. She pointed toward the ceiling, toward the stars beyond. And now they have samples of Dominion technology. 312 ships worth of technology. If even one piece survived, if they captured even one weapon or one engine, they will learn from it. They will improve upon it. And they will come looking for answers. Thiessen stood up from his seat. His smile was gone now. You are trying to frighten us with stories about primitives. I am trying to warn you, Myreth replied. Something is wrong with that world. Something is awake there. Something that has spent its entire existence fighting and surviving and adapting to impossible conditions. And we just showed them that they are not alone in the universe. She paused and let her words sink in. Worse, we showed them that the universe is hostile. High Arbiter Thiessen looked around the chamber. The delegates were shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Fear was spreading through the assembly like a disease. He could not allow that. Fear led to panic. Panic led to instability. And instability threatened his power. Enough, he declared. The listening order has always been prone to paranoid fantasies. The disappearance of the Armada is a mystery, yes, but it is surely a mundane one. Equipment failure, navigation error, internal conflict. We will investigate in time, but we will not panic over primitive creatures who cannot even reach their own neighboring planets. Myreth stared at him for a long moment. Then she slowly shook her head. You are making a terrible mistake, she said quietly. When they come for us, and they will come, remember that I warned you. Remember that you laughed. She turned and walked back into the shadows. The assembly watched her go. Then, slowly, the nervous chatter resumed. Delegates began to dismiss her warnings. They told each other that she was old and paranoid. They told themselves that a primitive species could never threaten the mighty galactic concord. But in the quiet corners of the chamber, some delegates did not laugh. They sat in silence, thinking about a distant blue planet and the strange, violent creatures who lived there, and they wondered what the humans had done to the unbroken Armada. They wondered what the humans would do next. 3 years passed after the disappearance of the unbroken Armada. The galaxy moved on. The story became a joke told in drinking halls across 1,000 worlds. The proud Dominion fleet that vanished while attacking primitives. It was the greatest embarrassment in galactic history, but questions remained. And eventually, the Concord decided to send a small expedition to find answers. They did not send warships. That would have given too much credit to Elder Myreth and her warnings. Instead, they sent a single research vessel called the Quiet Observer. It carried 7 scientists from different species, all experts in their fields. Their leader was a xenobiologist named Keth Saran. He was a practical creature with gray fur and sharp analytical eyes. He did not believe in mysteries. He believed in facts and evidence and logical explanations. The disappearance of the Armada, he was certain, had a simple answer. He intended to find it. The quiet observer dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. The crew gathered on the bridge to see the human star for the first time. It was ordinary, yellow and medium-sized. Nothing special at all. Beginning long-range scans, announced Veth, the ship's navigator. She was a small creature with large ears that swiveled constantly, picking up sounds that others could not hear. What do we know about this system? Asked KETH. The ship's artificial intelligence answered. Its voice was calm and mechanical. 8 planets. The third planet, called Earth by its inhabitants, is the only one with confirmed intelligent life. The species calls itself humanity. They have achieved basic space travel, but have not developed faster-than-light capability. Primitive indeed, muttered one of the other scientists. Keth nodded. Take us in slowly. Maintain stealth protocols. I want to observe before we get close. The quiet observer moved through the outer system at low speed. Almost immediately, they found something strange. I am detecting artificial structures, the AI reported. Satellites in orbit around the 6th planet. Probes near the 7th and 8th planets. Mechanical rovers on the 4th planet. Keth leaned forward. Artificial structures? This far from their homeworld? Confirmed. The humans have scattered technology throughout their entire system. The crew exchanged looks of surprise. Most species did not expand beyond their own planet until after they developed faster-than-light travel. It was simply too difficult and too expensive to explore with primitive rockets. But the humans had done it anyway. They are persistent, Veth observed. I will give them that. As they moved deeper into the system, the quiet observer began picking up electromagnetic signals. Radio waves. Television broadcasts. Digital transmissions. The humans were noisy. They leaked information into space constantly, like a child who could not stop talking. I want to analyze these transmissions, Keth said. Let us learn about our subjects before we observe them directly. What they learned disturbed them. The crew spent hours watching human broadcasts. They saw news reports about wars in distant countries. They saw entertainment programs where humans fought each other for sport. They saw historical documentaries about conflicts that killed millions. This cannot be accurate, said Rin, a young scientist with bright orange scales. No species could survive this level of internal violence. The data is accurate, the AI replied. Cross-referencing with historical records confirms repeated global conflicts. Their most recent major war ended approximately 80 years ago. It killed an estimated 70 to 85 million individuals. The bridge fell silent. They killed each other, Rin whispered. Not enemies from another world. Not invaders. Their own kind. Keth felt a cold sensation spreading through his chest. He had studied hundreds of species. He had never seen anything like this. Most intelligent species evolved away from violence once they reached a certain level of development. Cooperation was more efficient than conflict, but the humans had not evolved away from violence. They had embraced it. They had turned it into an art form. Look at this, Veth said. She had been reviewing older transmissions. This is from their early space program. They strapped themselves to containers of explosive fuel and launched themselves into space. The technology failed frequently. Many of them died. And they kept doing it? Rin asked. They kept doing it. They landed on their moon 66 years after their first powered flight. 66 years. Keth did some quick calculations in his head. That rate of advancement is ... extraordinary. Most. Species take thousands of years to achieve. Spaceflight. They also developed nuclear weapons. Within 40 years of discovering the underlying physics, the AI added helpfully. They built enough nuclear weapons to destroy their entire planet several times over. They came close to using them on multiple occasions. Why would any species build weapons that could destroy themselves? Rin asked. No one had an answer. The quiet observer continued its approach. As they entered the inner system, passing between the fourth and third planets, the sensors detected something new. Debris field ahead, the AI announced. Metallic fragments. Consistent with Dominion ship construction. Keth stood up quickly. On screen, the main display showed a field of broken metal drifting in the darkness. Pieces of hull plating. Twisted structural beams. The shattered remains of weapon systems. "This is from the Armada," Keth said. His voice was barely a whisper. "They made it this far." "I am detecting a command beacon," the AI said. "It appears intact. Shall I retrieve it?" "Yes, immediately." A small drone launched from the quiet observer and collected the beacon. It was brought aboard and connected to the ship's systems. The data extraction took several minutes. When it finished, the AI spoke again. The beacon contains sensor logs and communication records from the final hours of the unbroken Armada. "Do you wish to review them?" Keth looked at his crew. They all looked frightened. Part of him wanted to say no. Part of him wanted to turn the ship around and leave this cursed system forever. But he was a scientist. He needed to know the truth. "Play the recordings," he ordered. The main screen flickered to life. It showed the view from the Armada's flagship as it entered orbit around Earth. The planet looked beautiful and peaceful, covered in blue oceans and white clouds. Then the humans responded to the invasion. What the crew of the quiet observer saw next would haunt them for the rest of their lives. They watched the Armada's confident assault turn into desperate chaos. They watched ships explode and soldiers die. They watched the humans adapt to alien technology in real time, learning and improving with every engagement. When the recordings ended, no one spoke for a long time. Finally, Keth broke the silence. His voice was hollow and empty. "We need to go home," he said. "We need to warn everyone." The quiet observer turned and fled toward the edge of the system. Behind them, the blue planet called Earth continued to spin peacefully through the void. But now they knew the truth. There was nothing peaceful about it. There was nothing peaceful about humanity at all. The crew of the quiet observer gathered in the main viewing chamber. They had escaped the Sol system and were now drifting in deep space, far from any star. They needed to review the beacon's recordings properly. They needed to understand exactly what had happened to the unbroken Armada. Keth Soren stood at the control panel. His hands trembled slightly as he prepared the playback. The other 6 crew members sat in their seats, silent and afraid. "Beginning playback from the Armada's arrival," Keth announced. The room's walls came alive with holographic images. They showed the view from multiple ships as the unbroken Armada dropped out of hyperspace near Earth. The fleet was magnificent. 312 warships arranged in perfect formation. The flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Conquest, led the way. Admiral Zoreth's voice echoed through the recording. He sounded confident, arrogant even. "All ships move into bombardment position. This will be a standard subjugation. These primitives will surrender within hours, or we will burn their cities from orbit." The fleet moved toward the blue planet. As they entered orbit, they began broadcasting the Dominion's standard conquest message. "Surrender immediately. Resistance is futile. Your world now belongs to us." For several minutes, nothing happened. The humans did not respond. The Armada's officers laughed and made jokes about frightened primitives hiding in their caves. Then Earth woke up. The change was sudden and terrifying. Across the planet, thousands of signals began transmitting simultaneously. Military frequencies crackled to life. Radar systems activated. Satellite networks began tracking the alien fleet. Every nation on Earth stopped fighting each other and started working together. What is happening? One of the Armada's officers asked in the recording. They are. Organizing? Impossible, another voice replied. They were fighting a dozen separate wars an hour ago. But it was happening. In less than 30 minutes, the entire human species had unified against the alien threat. Old enemies shared targeting data. Rival nations opened their weapons stockpiles. Every available aircraft launched into the sky. Then came the missiles. The first wave rose from Earth, like a swarm of angry insects. Thousands of rockets climbed through the atmosphere, their nuclear warheads armed and ready. The Armada's point defense systems activated automatically. Beam weapons and interceptors destroyed most of the incoming missiles. Primitive weapons, Admiral Zorth laughed. They cannot even touch us. He was wrong. The humans were not trying to destroy the fleet with the first wave. They were testing, learning. Every missile carried sensors that transmitted data back to Earth. Every explosion revealed information about Dominion shields and weapons. Keth paused the playback. His crew stared at him with wide eyes. They were studying the Armada's defenses, he explained, using their own weapons as probes. They sacrificed thousands of missiles just to gather information. In the middle of a battle? Veth asked. That is ... insane. That is humanity, Keth replied. He resumed the playback. The second wave of missiles came 4 hours later. This time, they did not attack randomly. They targeted specific weak points that the first wave had revealed. Shield generators, engine cores, communication arrays. The missiles had been reprogrammed with new targeting data. Ships began to explode. The Armada tried to retreat, but the humans were not finished. Shuttles launched from the planet's surface. Small craft rose through the atmosphere, moving with desperate speed. The Armada destroyed most of them, but some made it through. The recordings showed what happened. Next, in horrible detail, human soldiers in primitive spacesuits cut through airlock doors with plasma torches. They breached Dominion ships and fought their way inside. They used simple projectile weapons that punched through armor designed to stop energy beams. They used knives and clubs and their own bare hands. The Dominion soldiers were larger, stronger, better equipped. It did not matter. The humans fought with a ferocity that the Armada had never seen. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They kept fighting even when they were wounded, even when their suits were damaged, even when death was certain. They laughed and screamed and sang war songs as they killed. By the ancient stars, Rin whispered. They are enjoying it. The recording showed a human soldier taking a plasma blast to his arm. The limb was burned away completely. The human looked at the stump, then looked back at the Dominion soldier who had shot him. He smiled. Then he charged forward and killed the alien with his remaining hand. One by one, the ships of the unbroken Armada fell. Some were destroyed by missiles. Some were boarded and captured. Some tried to flee and were hunted down by their own stolen shuttles, now piloted by humans who had figured out the controls through trial and error. The flagship was the last to fall. Admiral Zoreth's final transmission was a desperate plea for help that no one would ever receive. They are inside the ship. They are everywhere. We cannot stop them. They will not die. They will not stop. Someone please warn the Concorde. Warn everyone. These creatures are not primitives. They are. The transmission ended in screaming, and the sound of tearing metal. The final image in the recording came from a security camera near the flagship's bridge. It showed a human soldier standing over Admiral Zoreth's body. The human spacesuit was cracked and damaged. Blood, both red and silver, covered his armor. He looked directly at the camera. His face was visible through his broken visor. He was smiling. The ship's translation system analyzed his expression and body language. It produced a single word. Joy. The human was feeling joy. The recording ended. The holographic walls went dark. The crew of the Quiet Observer sat in stunned silence. Veth was the first to speak. They captured the entire fleet. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of technology. They learned how to operate alien spacecraft in hours, Rin added. Hours. It took my species 3 generations to figure out basic hyperspace mechanics. They did it while fighting a war. Keth stared at the empty walls. His mind was racing. We need to calculate their likely rate of technological advancement. The ship's AI ran the numbers. When it spoke, its mechanical voice somehow sounded frightened. Based on observed learning speed and available captured technology, humans will likely achieve independent faster-than-light travel within 8 to 12 years. If they focus all their resources on the effort, possibly sooner. 8 years. In 8 years, the species that had destroyed the unbroken armada would be able to reach the stars, and they would remember who came to conquer them first. Set course for the Galactic Concord, Keth ordered. Maximum speed. We have a warning to deliver. The Quiet Observer jumped into hyperspace, leaving the Sol system far behind. But even as they fled, they knew the truth. It would not be far enough. Nowhere would be far enough. The great hall of the Galactic Concord was full. Every seat was taken. Delegates from all 47 member species had gathered for this emergency session. The air was thick with tension and fear. Keth Soren stood at the center of the chamber. He had not slept properly in weeks. His gray fur had turned dull. His eyes were tired, but burning with desperate purpose. Beside him floated a holographic display, ready to show the recordings from the Armada's beacon. High Arbiter Thiessen sat in his elevated seat, looking down at the scientist with barely hidden annoyance. This had better be important, Dr. Soren. You have interrupted very delicate negotiations to demand this assembly. It is important, Keth replied. It is the most important thing the Concord has ever faced. He activated the display. The recording began to play. For the next hour, the assembly watched in horror as the unbroken armada was destroyed. They saw the missiles. They saw the boarding parties. They saw human soldiers fighting with impossible ferocity. They saw the smile on the face of the warrior who killed Admiral Zoreth. When the recording ended, silence filled the chamber. Thousands of delegates sat frozen in their seats. Keth spoke into the quiet. His voice was steady but grim. They call themselves humanity. They evolved on a planet with strong gravity, extreme weather, and constant natural disasters. Ice ages, supervolcanoes, pandemics that killed millions. Their world has been trying to kill them for millions of years, and they survived all of it. He changed the display to show biological data about humans. They are persistence predators. Their ancestors hunted by chasing prey until it died from exhaustion. They can run for hours without stopping. They can survive injuries that would kill most species. They poison themselves recreationally with alcohol and chemicals, and they consider this entertainment. Nervous whispers spread through the assembly. They sleep for only a third of each day cycle. The rest of the time, they work and think and create. They are never still. They are never satisfied. They constantly push themselves to achieve more. Keth showed images from human history, wars, inventions, explorations. They went from wooden sailing ships to nuclear weapons in 150 years. They went from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in 66 years. They split the atom, decoded their own genetic structure, and built machines that can think, all in less than 2 centuries. He paused and looked around the chamber. And now they have Dominion technology. 300 ships worth of weapons, engines, shields, and computers. They are studying it right now, learning from it, improving upon it. High Arbiter Thiessen leaned forward. Surely it will take them decades to understand our technology. They are still a young species. No, Kef said firmly. They learned to fly captured Dominion shuttles in hours. Hours. They reverse-engineered shield frequencies during an active battle. They adapted faster than any species in our records. He brought up the final calculation. Our most optimistic projection gives us 12 years before they achieve faster-than-light travel on their own. More realistic estimates say 8 years. Some analysts believe they could do it in 5. The chamber erupted in frightened voices. Delegates shouted at each other. Some called for immediate military action. Others demanded diplomatic contact. Others wanted to flee to the far side of the galaxy. Thiessen raised his hands for silence. It took several minutes for the noise to die down. "What do you suggest we do?" he asked Keth. Before the scientist could answer, a familiar dry voice spoke from the shadows. "You could start by apologizing to those of us who warned you." Elder Chronicler Myrith emerged from the darkness. She walked slowly toward the center of the chamber, her yellow eyes glowing behind her silver mask. "I told you 3 years ago that something was wrong with that world," she said. "I told you that something was awake there. You laughed at me." Thiessen's face flushed with shame and anger. "This is not the time for recriminations. No, it is the time for truth." Myrith stopped beside Keth and faced the assembly. "The listening order has continued to monitor Earth's transmissions. We have heard their response to the invasion." She activated her own holographic display. It showed human news broadcasts from the weeks after the battle. "They have united," Myrith explained. "Every nation on their planet has put aside their differences. They have created a single global military force. They are building new ships using captured Dominion technology. And they are very, very angry." The assembly watched footage of massive construction projects. Shipyards rising from the ground. Factories working around the clock. Millions of humans training for war. "They have also detected our departure," Myrith continued. The quiet observer was not as quiet as its name suggested. They tracked its hyperspace trajectory. Keth spun to face her. "What? That is impossible. They do not have the technology to detect hyperspace signatures." "They did not have the technology," Myrith corrected. "They do now. They built it from Dominion sensor components. It took them 6 weeks." The full horror of the situation began to sink in. "They know we exist," Thiessen whispered. "They know where we are." "They know everything," Myrith confirmed. "They have decoded our language from the Armada's communication logs. They have studied our social structures and our governments. They know about the Concord. They know about the Dominion." She turned to face Thiessen directly. "And they know that you laughed when we warned you about them. They intercepted those broadcasts too. They know that the galaxy saw them as primitives, as a joke, as an easy conquest." The High Arbiter's face had gone pale. 8 years, Myrith said. "Perhaps less. That is how long we have before they come for answers. The question is, what will we say when they arrive? Will we offer peace? Or will we give them a reason to show us what they showed the unbroken Armada?" She let the question hang in the air. "We attacked them first," she continued. "We tried to conquer them. We tried to enslave them. We underestimated them at every turn. And now we must face the consequences of our arrogance." Keth stepped forward. "There is still time to prepare. We must fortify the border systems. We must unite our militaries. We must hope," Myrith interrupted. "We must hope that they are better than us. We must hope that they choose mercy over revenge." She turned and began walking back toward the shadows. "Because if they do not, she said over her shoulder. "There is nothing in this galaxy that will stop them. They." Assembly sat in terrified silence as she disappeared into the darkness. They had 8 years. 8 years to prepare. For the arrival of humanity. Somehow, they knew it would not be enough. 8 years passed like a fever dream. The Galactic Concord worked harder than it had ever worked before. Old enemies became allies. Ancient disputes were forgotten. Every member species contributed ships, soldiers, and resources to the defensive effort. They built the largest military force in galactic history. 40,000 warships gathered at the border systems. Massive defensive stations protected every major planet. Billions of soldiers trained constantly, preparing for the inevitable. High Arbiter Thiessen stood on the bridge of the command station, watching the fleet through a massive viewing window. It was an impressive sight. The combined might of 47 civilizations, ready to defend their homes against the coming storm. "Do you think it will be enough?" asked Kethsoran. The scientist stood beside him, looking older and more tired than ever. Thiessen did not answer. They both knew the truth. They had seen the recordings. They knew what humanity was capable of. The sensor alarm broke the silence. "Hyperspace signature detected," announced the station's AI. "Single vessel. Unknown configuration. Emerging at the system's edge. Only one ship?" Thiessen frowned. "Put it on screen." The main display showed a small craft dropping out of hyperspace. It was ugly and crude, clearly built from salvaged Dominion technology, held together with human engineering. It looked like something a child might build from spare parts, but it worked. It was here. In less than 8 years, humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel. "They are broadcasting," the AI reported. Thiessen straightened his robes. "Let us hear it." A human voice filled the bridge. It spoke perfect galactic standard, without any accent or hesitation. "This is the UNSC Persistence, representing the United Nations of Earth. We come in peace. We request permission to approach and establish diplomatic contact." Thiessen felt a small spark of hope. They were asking permission. They were using diplomatic language. Perhaps Elder Myrith had been wrong. Perhaps humanity was not the monster they feared. They could be lying, Keth warned. This could be a trick. Perhaps. But we must respond. Thiessen composed himself and spoke clearly. "This is High Arbiter Thiessen of the Galactic Concord. Your request is being considered. Please maintain your current position." "Understood," the human voice replied. "We will wait." The small ship stopped moving. It simply hung in space, alone against 40,000 warships. 3 days passed. The Concord debated endlessly. Some wanted to destroy the human ship immediately. Others wanted to attempt diplomacy. Others wanted to flee. The arguments went round and round without resolution. During those 3 days, Thiessen noticed something strange. The fleet's sensor officers seemed nervous. They kept rechecking their instruments and whispering to each other. On the 4th day, he demanded answers. "What is wrong?" He asked the chief sensor officer. "Why does your crew seem so frightened?" The officer hesitated. Then he transferred his data to the main display. "We have been tracking the human ship since it arrived," he explained. "But we also noticed ... anomalies, small sensor ghosts, tiny fluctuations in our detection grid." "What kind of anomalies?" "We investigated." "And we found?" The officer swallowed hard. "We found these." The display changed. It showed the space around the Concord fleet. But now there were additional markers. Hundreds of them, hidden among the asteroids, drifting between the defensive stations, positioned around every major vessel. 700 additional ships, the officer said. Human stealth vessels. They have been here for at least 2 days. They slipped past our entire defensive network without being detected. Thiessen felt the blood drain from his face. They have mapped every installation, the officer continued. Every communication relay. Every weapons platform. They have infiltrated our computer networks. They have targeting solutions for every ship in our fleet. He paused. They could destroy us completely. Right now. And we would not be able to stop them. The bridge fell silent. Thiessen stared at the display, watching the markers of 700 human ships surrounding his mighty fleet like predators circling wounded prey. Then the communication system activated again. High Arbiter. Thiessen. It was the same human voice from the Persistence. We know you have discovered our ships. We wanted you to discover them. We wanted you to understand something important. Thiessen forced himself to speak. What do you want us to understand? We know what you expected from us. We know you prepared for the worst. We know you thought we would come here for revenge. The voice paused. We could. We have the capability. Your own analysts have confirmed it by now. Then why haven't you attacked? Because we did not come here to destroy you. Another pause. We came here because the universe is vast and dark, and we have been alone for too long. We came here because, for our entire history, we only had each other. We fought because there was no one else to talk to. We built weapons because we were afraid of the empty sky. The human voice grew softer, warmer. We forgive you for attacking us. We understand why you did it. You were afraid of the unknown. So were we once. We have spent our whole existence being afraid. On the display, the stealth ships began to power down their weapons. Cargo bay doors opened across the hidden fleet, revealing their contents. Not bombs. Not troops, supplies, medicine, technology, seeds and soil samples from Earth, art and music and books. We did not come here to conquer, the human voice continued. We came here to share. We came here to learn and to grow together. We came here as neighbors. Thiessen watched in stunned silence as human shuttles launched from the stealth ships, carrying gifts to the defensive stations. But never forget what we chose not to do, the voice added. There was steel beneath the warmth now. We could have destroyed you. We could have taken revenge for the Armada, for the laughter, for the contempt. We chose not to. Remember that choice. Remember what we are capable of. And remember that we are offering friendship instead of fire. The Persistence began moving forward slowly. The 40,000 Concord ships parted to let it through. No one gave the order. They simply moved aside, instinctively making way for the small, ugly human ship. We hope you will accept our offer, the human voice said. We hope we can build something better together. But understand this. We are not asking for permission to exist. We are telling you that we are here, that we have always been here, and that we will never be alone again. Thiessen stood on the bridge, watching the human ship approach. His fleet surrounded him. His weapons were ready, and he was absolutely terrified, not because humanity was violent. He had known that for years, but because humanity was capable of mercy, they had every reason to destroy the Concord. Instead, they chose peace. They chose forgiveness. And that meant they could choose differently at any time. That was the true terror of humanity. Not their strength or their ferocity or their impossible adaptability. It was their restraint. They chose to be gentle. They chose to be kind, but they did not have to. High Arbiter Thiessen lowered his head in something like respect, something like fear, something like hope. Welcome to the Galactic Concord, he said quietly. The human era had begun.